Hey guys, thanks for joining us. We're going to be taking a step in a little bit of a different direction than we have, I shouldn't say in a while. I don't know if we've ever really, we kind of done this a little bit in the past. We talked about remakes one time, and then did we ever cover any other outside of a specific movie, outside of talking about people before? I don't think we've ever talked about this type of topic before, outside of the remakes before, but...
Well, we did the remake episode, like you said. No, I don't think we did anything that was like we discussed a certain. I don't know. I guess how would you describe this? This is like a.
I don't know. I guess this is kind of like, a movie universe, I guess is what you would call it.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Kind of like Marvel has their universe, DC has their universe. This is the new universe for all of our classic and favorite horror icons from the classic era of horror.
And oddly enough, it's called the Universal Dark Universe.
And this was relatively newly released, or to let us know what was going on. It was May 22nd of this year that this was officially announced, that there was going to be this new initiative to have the classic monsters, the Universal monsters for a new generation, being brought back to film for the modern day.
And I am actually a little bit in shock that The Mummy has been out for a week and a half now. And at least domestically anyway, it is nothing short of a flop. But yet it seems that they're going to keep on just trudging forward, and doesn't put any damper in their plans. They're gonna keep moving, at least for now.
And this is a very interesting initiative by the studio. The Universal monsters, that came out with, back in the 30s and 40s and probably 50s too. But, Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, the Wolfman, all of this, this is the Creature from the Black Lagoon. These are iconic monsters. Like we've talked about so many times, these were the original, this is the original cinematic horror characters. And I have kind of a soft spot for the Universal monsters just because of my love of Svengoolie. And I remember as a very small little kid, watching Svengoolie, watching all the classic Universal monsters, all those characters I just said. Although our generation is, the golden age with the slashers and all of that, the classic era, really the tone of that time period is still like, when you think of horror, you think of the old classic Dark Castle and the black and white foggy cemetery, or the mad scientist laboratory and all that stuff. And this is really like where horror began.
I would share the same sentiment a little bit with that, not just because of Svengoolie necessarily, even though that does have quite a bit to do with it. Because for those of you who don't know, Svengoolie, every Saturday night at 10, not 9 Central on MeTV, they have, I think it's exclusively Universal movies that they play anymore, at least. And they kind of are, and he's talked about this. I don't know if he's really talked about it on the show. I know he talks about it in like his newsletter and on Facebook and stuff, because there are people that complain that, let's say like the Bride of Frankenstein is playing this coming weekend, and it might have played 6 months ago, and people are like, "Oh, you just played that movie." So it's kind of dictated what they play, but then they switch up like some of the segments and stuff. Not only just because of Svengoolie, but a lot of these old Universal movies, not only are they the start of cinematic horror, not all of them. I mean, there's a lot of the Universal movies back in the day that were garbage and still are, but there's a lot of them that are really good even though they might differ from some of the source material a little bit, but still, they're still really good. And you look at some of like the Wolfman and stuff, that stop motion effect that they would do for the makeup and stuff. You're like, you can tell that it's fake, but you're still like, that's kind of cool when you see it now. And you even think about it like, Frankenstein. Now, I don't know what that makeup looked like in person, but when you see that movie, it's convincing that that's a monster. And then if you actually sit there and think about it, like, that's like 90 years ago. That's insane that they pulled that off.
Those movies are really cool. And, that really is the, for any horror fan, you got to pop in Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman. This is where it really all began for us. And they really did do a good job of pulling it off. And I mean, this is iconic stuff. So, Universal has had the monsters in their vaults forever, and it's, they've tried a few times bring them back out. We had Van Helsing. They brought all the monsters back for that. Technically, I guess, the Dark Universe, they're saying that The Mummy is kind of, which just came out this month, is supposedly the kind of launching of this new, world or what have you. And I guess the best way to explain this, if we haven't already, is kind of like Marvel. Like this is the new universe. Like just like you get to do all the Avengers and Iron Man, Spider-Man, Thor, and all these characters get to have their separate movies, and then they combine them for these giant universe movies, and that's kind of what they're doing. Universal realize, hey, we got these monsters, and we got to bring this back and do individual movies, and then create where they can kind of intertwine within each other. And ultimately, I guess the Mummy is kind of the beginning of this, but I guess if you look back, Universal earlier, way back, they kind of brought back the Wolfman, and this isn't part of this new Dark Universe, but they were kind of going along those lines of trying to bring these monsters back then. And then there was also Dracula Untold, which came out a few years back, and I had kind of read somewhere that was actually considered was going to be the beginning of this whole thing, but that didn't work out very well. So now it's official that The Mummy is the stepping out point for this new branding. And I will say, I did not see The Mummy. I will say that this idea, this concept of the Dark Universe is incredible and awesome, and I'm really excited about it. But I think they're going about it in the wrong way, or they're starting on the wrong foot. What would you say about that?
Oh, I would say I agree with that 100%. So first of all, when the Mummy, when the advertising first started with the Mummy, or it's probably even before that. Yeah, I think it was before that when I heard Tom Cruise is going to be in the new Mummy movie. I'm like, why the hell is Tom Cruise in the Mummy? The guy is 4 foot tall and is 79 years old nowadays. I mean, if you're going to, why is he in this movie? And I knew right away when I heard that Tom Cruise is going to be in it. I'm like, oh, it's not going to be any good, because if Tom Cruise is in it, then they're going to have it be a stupid action movie. And then sure enough, the stupid trailers start coming out and stuff. And what's the thing in the trailer? Oh, we have this plane crash sequence. Why the hell is that in there? It's not an action movie. It's a horror movie. It's a horror movie.
Yeah, I am in 100% agreement with you. I did not see The Mummy. I don't know if I'm going to see it in the theaters. I don't know if it's worth it. Tom Cruise has some good films, but I'm not particularly a huge fan of his. And I certainly don't want to see a Mummy movie that reminds me of Mission Impossible, which is like exactly. The trailer, like you said, it was like, holy crap, this isn't... Like, when you watch the trailer, you're like, what is this? And then it's like, oh, it's The Mummy? Okay. Yeah, it really to me, this is such a bad misstep for all of this. They are going way in the wrong direction. They need to rethink this thing quickly because I think the whole idea of the Dark Universe is such a great idea that I'm really excited about it. I'm really looking forward to what they do with it. But man, they are starting on the wrong foot.
If you don't want to go in the full out horror route, in quotes there, you could have done a similar thing to, honestly, and I'm not saying that it needed to be this exactly, but you could have kind of went along the lines with like Monster Squad or some of those movies from the 80s that were reintroducing these characters. But it still had some horror feel to it, but still that, I guess, what I'm trying to get at is like kind of the more of a PG-13 kind of feel,
Yeah.
rather than a hard R. It doesn't have to be a gore fest by any stretch of the imagination. If you're going to try to compete with the Avengers and Star Wars and the Justice League and all this other stuff by having these giant universe movies, you can't do it with horror characters, I mean, I and like you, I didn't see the movie. I have no desire to see the movie because as I anticipated, it currently has a 16% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, from the reviews that I was reading from critics and viewers, both were like, this is not a good movie at all. And the other thing that I found absolutely hilarious right after this came out was maybe it was even before it came out, but was reading all these people that were upset that they were remaking Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. I'm like, what? That wasn't the first Mummy movie. Well, what are you talking about?
I'll have to reveal something here. I don't think I ever saw Brendan Fraser's The Mummy all the way through. I mean, I saw bits and pieces of it, but what I saw of that movie, I was not a fan of. I know a lot of people compare it to the Indiana Jones films. I didn't quite feel that from what I saw. I think it might have been for the absolutely horrendous CGI that I saw in that film that kept me away from it, and I still haven't gone back and watched it. I mean, I know there's a huge fan base for those films, but that to me just was a huge turnoff. And when I'm thinking, you're bringing back The Mummy, I'm thinking, you're going back to the vaults, and you're going to bring me a horror film, a dark, gothic type of film, that's going to bring back the character of the Mummy, similar to what we saw back in the old days, in the classic horror era. And then we get Tom Cruise, a bunch of action scenes, and this is not the direction I was hoping. And to be honest with you, and the other thing too is they're getting a lot of big name stars for these films. Like Johnny Depp he's signed on to do the Invisible Man. They got a guy to play Frankenstein's monster already, and then we got Russell Crowe in the Dr. Jekyll role already. So these are big names, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to save this.
If you look at the way I don't know if it's actually a definitive schedule or not, but the announced films anyway. So we had The Mummy that just came out, and then the next one is Bride of Frankenstein. Is the next one that's supposed to come out in 2019, which that's fine that you're making a Bride of Frankenstein movie. Where is Frankenstein?
Yeah, that's kind of strange. Why are they?
You know what I mean? And then
what are they doing that for?
I have no idea. And then the next one after that is some Creature from the Black Lagoon movie, which is fine. I mean, that's great. And then an Invisible Man movie. And see, that's the thing. In today's world, I can't imagine that people are going to run to the theater to see a Creature from the Black Lagoon movie.
Yeah, we'll have to see where they go with that. I'm curious to see what direction they take that with, but I don't know. I still have hope that maybe after, I think the Mummy being kind of a flop in the United States, I guess it's doing really well internationally, but the fact that it is doing so badly here, I hope that is kind of a wake-up call for Universal, that they realize that, if you're going to do this, you cannot do Tom Cruise Mission Impossible with we'll just toss the Mummy in there. They got to go back to the roots of these films, the gothic overtones and everything.
I guess Marvel pulled it off with pulling these more obscure names into the mainstream. I mean, Iron Man was one of their biggest movies, and before the Iron Man movie came out, who was really an Iron Man fan? It was always Spider-Man and Captain America and stuff, and then, Iron Man. Who's making an Iron Man movie? That's gonna be a waste of time. But then,
well, gosh, Iron Man, for crying out loud, they did Ant-Man. Like, what?
Right. And then Guardians of the Galaxy. I remember when they were making Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's a bunch of people that were like, oh, it's going to be horrible. Like I said, I don't have a problem that you're making a Bride of Frankenstein movie. Where the hell's Frankenstein? I mean, are you going to be making a husband of the Bride of Frankenstein movie later?
The only thing I can think about with that is the original book of Frankenstein, the Mary Shelley book. Actually, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein are all part of the original story. So maybe they're just calling it Bride of Frankenstein, but they're going to tell the whole story in it. I don't know. Maybe they're going backwards like that. But yeah, I mean, why would they do the Bride? That you would assume that they would, want to do Frankenstein first. I don't know. Maybe because another option. Maybe there hasn't been a Bride of Frankenstein film where there has been all these attempts to bring Frankenstein back, and it seems like they've all been pretty much flops. I mean, wasn't there like a Robert De Niro Frankenstein film that came out?
Oh, yeah. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is what that one was called.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like there was a lot of times they attempted to do this, and it just, I don't know. Seemed like it kind of... I think the last successful monster films, in terms of all these classic monsters, was when Hammer took over. And they with the Christopher Lee and what's his name, the Star Wars guy, can't think of his name. Guy from they did the computer version of him in Rogue One.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
But yeah, those guys were like that. The Hammer stuff, they brought back the Frankenstein and Dracula and all that, and it seemed to be pretty successful again. But that was a long time ago, and it's like then horror became more modernized, and we had the 70s and the 80s, of which that's our era, what we call the golden age, and then the horribly shitty 90s. And then like the 2000s were kind of like the return of the golden age, all the remakes and reboots and all of that. So I don't know. Like what I'm like really like the whole idea of the Dark Universe is incredible. It's awesome. It's exciting. It's amazing. 100% behind it. Every time I see like a classic monster, it always like gives me kind of that warm feeling. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I even, with the reaction figures, I grabbed a lot of the Universal monsters that they put out just because, those are such iconic characters. It's like I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going in the right direction. I certainly don't think Tom Cruise was a good idea. I don't know that like even getting all these big name stars is a good idea. Like, I mean, Johnny Depp. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. I don't know, but it just seems like Russell Crowe. These guys are. I guess we'll see.
That's part of my issue with some of these, not just the Universal ones, I mean, it's kind of all of them anymore, really. I mean, you still have Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, hell, Harrison Ford. They're out there still making these movies. And like, dude, you're 70 years old, man. Nobody is going to buy that you are an action star anymore.
Yeah, Harrison Ford is working on the next Indiana Jones.
The next Indiana Jones got pushed out.
Did it? Oh, I didn't catch that.
Did you? So, kind of change the topic a little bit, but it was announced yesterday or the day before that episode 9 is getting pushed up in 2019 to a May release date rather than being December, because Frozen 2 is going to be released in December of that year. And
episode 9 is going to be pushed to May, you said?
Yep.
Instead of December. Actually, that's cool. I'm cool with that because I didn't really like the idea of putting them in the December slot.
So, we're going to get episode 8 this year, and then Han Solo next year, and then episode 9 right away in May of the following year. And then
cool.
Because of that, then I guess the Indiana Jones 5 movie was pushed to 2020.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which, I mean, honestly, I don't know why they're making another Indiana Jones movie.
Is he going to be alive that long?
Well, and the last one was horrible.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm going to... this, again, we're going off topic a little. I know we're not reviewing the Crystal Skull. I went into the theater. I saw that one in the theater when it came out, and like everybody else, but it's one of those movies that has become a guilty pleasure of mine over time.
Huh.
Purchased it on Blu-ray, and it doesn't live up. Like, I'm not my least favorite Indiana Jones film is The Last Crusade. The third one just doesn't register with me. The first one is just a masterpiece. Raiders of the Lost Ark. In the Temple of Doom is incredible. Love that movie. And then the Last Crusade just kind of is sort of like, to me it just is like, whatever. But the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like that movie, for some reason, I think it's because of the conspiratorial aspect of it and the aliens and stuff, that somehow that registered with me, and I kind of found it interesting. And there's a lot I don't like about that movie, especially it looks like they're like filming on a soundstage. It doesn't seem real, and there's a lot of problems with it. But that's one of those movies that it's kind of a guilty pleasure. I'll toss it in every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to those big, like, cult movies, or whatever, of our childhood, Star Wars and all of the, the Goonies and all those movies and stuff, I would say of all of those, the Indiana Jones series is actually probably my least favorite.
Okay.
I like the first two, and if they're on, I'd watch them, but yeah, the third one I could really care less about, and yeah, the Crystals or whatever it was, Crystal Skulls or whatever it was called, I watched that one I think once, and I didn't think it was as bad as like a lot of people were saying, but again, mainly probably because I'm not that invested into Indiana Jones as I am into other stuff. Because I do have a couple of friends that are like, huge Indiana Jones fans. And it's kind of funny, like, I didn't realize this until probably maybe 10 years ago. But there are people that are a little bit younger than us. Not a lot, but a little bit younger than us. Probably more of like our younger brothers' age range. Because both of our younger brothers are the same age. But that kind of age range, that there's a lot of folks that fall into that category, that Indiana Jones is to them what Star Wars is to us. I was like, what? Are you crazy? I had no idea. But yeah, which makes sense though when you think about it, because I mean, if you're born in like 70, like 79 to probably 83, 84, those movies were just coming out at that time compared to what,
Oh, sure.
You're born in 83. Well, hell, the Star Wars movies are over with.
Yeah. Yeah, my brother wasn't a big Star Wars fan. I mean, he caught the tail end with me, and that was it. For me, I mean, I was born right into it, so it was like all I knew for the beginning of my existence.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back on the childhood, that's what, Star Wars Star Wars toys, G.I. Joe toys, He-Man toys. That was like it. That was in Transformers. But
Yeah, Transformers, yep.
I wasn't too big into Transformers. But yeah, I remember having Star Wars toys. Yeah, like I said, G.I. Joe guys and, He-Man. And I always remember too, because the Star Wars guys and the G.I. Joe guys, they were all, that little, like, whatever, like 4-inch toy or whatever. And then the He-Man guys came out and they were, like, huge.
Oh, yeah.
What is this?
Bumped them up quite a bit. Yeah, they were quite a different type of action figure by that point.
But I honestly don't remember playing with other, like, action figures other than those, really.
I had a Creature from the Black Lagoon action figure. Actually, it was part of the Remco line back in the early 80s. Because of Star Wars, the Universal Monsters were released on 3/4 inch action figure, and they had like 6-inch dolls of them as well. But that Remco line was pretty cool, and the reaction figure line is very, very similar to that Remco line. It's like almost, I mean, it's not the same molds by any means, but they're very similar if you compare the two, like each character. But there was that, and he did a few things here and there too. But yeah, definitely Star Wars and G.I. Joe were kind of like the main lines of that time.
Yeah, I was trying to remember, because the G.I. Joe guys and the Star Wars guys were roughly the same size. I wonder if I ever had, like, G.I. Joe and Star Wars battles at my house. I probably did.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Because I don't remember having any big play sets for Star Wars at all, but I do remember, and I wonder whatever happened to it, but I had this, like Cobra Command Center thing for the...
Oh, did you have that?
I think so. If it's the thing I'm thinking of, it looked like kind of almost like a football stadium, like an arena kind of thing, like it was a circular thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember getting that for Christmas one year.
That's cool. Yeah, I had the Ewok Village for Star Wars.
Oh,
Actually, have it now too.
the same one?
No, but I do have it like complete with the box, and it's not, unfortunately, not the same one. But
Yeah, between me and my one cousin, we had a bunch of stuff, and yeah, I don't have any of the stuff from when I was a kid anymore.
yeah, the only thing that lasted from my childhood was the Rancor monster. I kept that, so that's the only original toy I still have.
That's cool. To get back on track, though, when I heard that they were kind of doing this, unfortunately, it was already after like news that the Mummy was coming out, and I'm not gonna lie, I already had my preconceptions of the Mummy before it ever came out. To me, if I was in charge, which I mean, I know I'll never be in charge of Universal, but I think I would have approached it differently. I mean, you have these iconic names that everybody knows, and not to say that the people don't know what the Mummy is, but everybody knows Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolfman. You would think if you were going to come out with this big monster world that you would have approached it a little bit differently and maybe came out with at least one of the big names. If not right away, you would think it would maybe be next on the list rather than, I guess maybe we'll see one of the big names in 15 years or something from now.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with this. I'm curious to see what happens. Universal, you're stepping out, and I think you stepped out on the wrong foot. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny too because even the Mummy, like we were saying, it flopped stateside. It really did. I mean, it flopped hard, and usually when it comes to returns and stuff on these movies, you know, from the media to the studios and everything, it seems like they never really take in the worldwide totals ever. Because this movie's not the first one to really rake in money overseas when it failed here. Even the projections before it came out was like it was gonna maybe make $30 million its opening weekend, and I think it barely raked in $30 million. I think they took the wrong approach. You know, if you wanted to make an action series and stuff, maybe you should have came up with your own characters for that. But I mean, because you don't want to make, you can't turn horror icons into action stars.
No, that's what they're doing. They're looking along the lines of they're thinking of this as like a comic book thing, but it just isn't that. I think they need to go back and really understand what went wrong with the Mummy, and I think once they figure that out, that this needs to be more horror based, I think will be and more gothic and more in that tone. I think we may have something that works.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with the next one. I did hear that, because originally I had heard that, if the Mummy underperforms, then that's going to be the end of it. And then I was reading an article yesterday or the day before that flat out said that, nope, we're marching forward with The Bride of Frankenstein, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how that one does.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that one. I just hope they don't mess it up too badly, you know? So it would really be nice if they could just do a nice reboot of those monsters and not mess it up and not have to go back and redo it. And it seems like that seems to be the thing, is they'll mess up and they'll, oh crap, we got to go back, and they'll go back, clean it up, do this, and then try again. But I just think with this Mummy, it was just a bad idea, the direction they were going with it.
Well, I think that wraps up this episode. I don't know. I think we were a little bit kinder to Universal than I thought maybe we were going to go. I don't want to necessarily see this fail. Even if it doesn't fail in the direction that it's headed now, if it doesn't change, I probably will never see any of the movies.
I would agree with you. Yeah, they got a lot to prove with this.